Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Professional Brotherhood podcast. Hey there, Kara. What's happening?
Hello. How's it going tonight?
It is going well. It's going
Good.
well. Yeah. Can't complain. I could complain because it's
Right.
70 degrees again in November. Although, I don't know. Like, I love the weather, but I'm looking forward to ski season. So another topic for another day.
Right.
But you did manage to line us up with another great guest tonight. So if you would please do the honors, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Today we're super excited to be joined by Tim Ahern. Tim is a firefighter here in Central New York. He's on Cazenovia Fire, and he is the owner of Ahern Murphy and Associates, which is a leadership development business. And Tim's going to talk to us a lot about leadership today, leadership in the fire service, leadership in general, leadership in life, and share with us some of his experience as a fireman. So we're really excited to welcome Tim.
Thank you, Kara. It's great. I'm really proud of what Brian does with this podcast, and anything I can do to help, I want to do it. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're really happy to have you here. We'd love for you to talk a little bit about your background and how you became a fireman.
That's a long journey. I found fire service late in life. I grew up on a muck farm. I was raised by immigrant grandparents that didn't speak English. I didn't have a lot of options. I had my cooter test in high school. You fill out circle dots with a number 2 pencil. It goes to your guidance counselor. My guidance counselor called me in and told me that I would be a bricklayer when I grew up. I was excited. I went down to the cafeteria jumping up and down. I'm going to be a bricklayer. I'm going to be a bricklayer. Everybody thought I was a little bit nuts. Going from muck farmer to bricklayer is a huge promotion in my eyes. I had an ability to play with pain. It got me a full football scholarship to Syracuse University. It took me off the farm. I was introduced to a whole new world. I love learning. My mom would have given anything to go to college. I wasn't going to blow that opportunity, so I made it through 4 years, Dean's List, became an accounting major. My academic advisor for football players told me, dumb jocks can only be majors in, this, and this, and I argued with him about it. Somehow I ended up an accounting major because he told me you couldn't do that. Called my mom, what's your major? Accounting. How'd you pick that? Some jerk told me I couldn't do it. Career 1 was public accounting. Manhattan, worked for Price Waterhouse, I'd never been to the city before. I'm a country boy. Hated it, came back. Career 2 was manufacturing. Career 3 was real estate development. And all those careers, Kara, from age 21, graduated from college, till age 42, 21 years later, I was never home more than 2 nights a week. I was always on the road. I was always traveling. I didn't know my kids. If they fell down and scraped a knee, they'd run by me to find someone that cared. I was never home. I resigned from a great position. I was chief operating officer of one of the most dynamic real estate development companies in the country, and resigned one day, came home and wanted to start over. And I knew one thing. I knew the world was overmanaged and underled. And you manage the inventory, you manage paper clips, you manage the motor pool, but you lead people. There was a huge shortage of leadership in my roles coming up through the ranks. I was always involved in recruiting, retaining, and trying to develop people, and wanted to do it on my own. Yeah. So with that, coming back home to Cazenovia, trying to get reintegrated into my family, I was asked to be a football coach at Cazenovia High School, a great tradition. Came in there and hey, the greatest things you could do is be involved in the football program in Cazenovia or the fire service. And football came first. Got a chance to work with my son up through him graduating. He was an all-state kid, was going to go play in college. And now I can either stay as a coach or I can go buy an RV and watch my kid play college football. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Created a huge void. Now I'm 50, 51, 52 years old. Created a huge void. Now what are you going to do to give back? And I remember going down to the fire department, filled out an application. A current chief, he was a past chief then, Sam Osborne, called me on the phone. He said, Tim, I got your application here. I says, that's great, Sam. He says, we don't normally get your type to try and join the fire department. I said, what type? Roman Catholic? And, it was a great opportunity for me. Late in life, I grew up, like I said earlier, in a family of cops and priests. My cousins, my uncles, my dad were all cops and did what they did to give back to their community. And at a late age to join the fire department, I'm up against the clock now. So, Kara, I wasn't quite as fast as you going up through the ranks and getting all your certs in, but I had to go quick. I had to get training in. I had to get my, exterior, interior, EMT, get that all under my belt. And the fire service has given me another reason, cause, or purpose to try and stay in shape, to try and pass that physical, to try and do things that guys in their 60s aren't doing.
Right.
So I'm glad they had me. I'm glad I have an opportunity to serve. And there's really some incredible people you meet along that way. But I will say everything rises and falls on leadership. So if I'm talking about the leadership in a home, the leadership at a church, the leadership of a Division I college football team, fighter squadrons, SWAT teams, Division I, sports teams, S&P 500 companies, everything rises and falls on leadership. And if you've got great leaders, you've got an opportunity to compete and survive and thrive. If you've got poor leadership, in today's day and age, you won't be around long. You'll be gone.
Right.
You'll be replaced.
For sure.
And tell us a little bit about your company and the work that you do.
Ahern, Murphy and Associates. I had a best friend from fourth grade, Bart Murphy. He was evicted. He moved into my fourth grade class halfway through the year. I was the biggest loser in fourth grade. In walked loser number 2, and Mrs. Carter teamed us up. She said, Timothy, you show Bartholomew around. We were the 2 biggest losers in Bear Road Elementary School. Show and tell was the worst day because teacher would come in for show and tell. We never had anything to show, never had anything to tell. And Mrs. Carter knew it, never called on us, but she put us together. Mm-hmm. So I went through my journey of athletics and business. He went through his journey. He had nothing, so he enlisted. Mm-hmm. Coming out of basic training, he was a janitor. His job was mucking out toilets at Lackland Air Force Base. And one day he was cleaning out the pilot's locker room and saw the pilots walk in and knew right then he's going to be a pilot. So he, night school, lunch hour school, weekend school, he gets there the hardest way possible. Finally, they're so sick of him coming back, they send him to pilot training. 150 go, only 20 graduate, 130 flunk out. He graduates number 1.
Wow.
Illustrious career, retires as a lieutenant colonel, F-16 fighter pilot. He's at 42, I'm 42. He just finished the military. I just finished business, and we got together and started Ahern Murphy. He brought the military side, what he learned through that career. I brought the business and athletic side. And we had a ball for 20 years building Ahern Murphy into the greatest leadership development company, high performance team building. Please check out our website, www.ahernmurphy.com. Take a look at the client list, take a look at the programs we offered. Just had a great run. The colonel died on December 11th, 2017 of cancer. He's buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. We go down every year in memory of his death. And just had a great run, Kara. Just had a great run. All kinds of companies, for-profit, not-for-profit, fire departments, paid departments, volunteer departments, Division I college athletic teams. We changed the pictures. When we come in with our deck, the pictures change to the audience. Mm-hmm. Right. The themes and the topics do not change. It's all the same. I don't care what it is. And we can talk about a few of those tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the things he said early on here regarding leadership and, the organization as a whole. Essentially, if you have no leadership, or your leadership doesn't know where they're going, what they're doing, or how they're doing it, that organization is going to struggle to be successful, right? And in the volunteer service, sometimes, I've seen agencies with poor leadership that they manage to hold on while that leadership is in for the time that they're in, you know, and I guess thankfully they have elections every year and sometimes can change those things up. But the ones that don't, or that are unfortunately stuck with a group of individuals or just a couple individuals just because nobody else wants to step up and take that role from them, are the ones that suffer the most. So I'd love to hear some of your experiences within the fire service as to
Yeah.
some of the things that you've seen over the
Sure.
years.
You know, Brian, I think leadership of others begins with leadership of self.
Absolutely.
So if you have individuals that are totally disorganized, you know, have no clue where they were, no clue where they are, no clue where they're trying to go, there's no singleness of purpose. It's just chaos. It's constant chaos. You don't want to follow people that are lost, right?
Right.
My dad was a chain smoker. We'd be in the back of the car. He'd be taking us someplace. At 8 years old, he has no clue where he's going. You know he's lost and he won't ask for directions. A membership body that knows the leadership doesn't know where we are or going and aren't leading themselves well, aren't going to build the confidence that you need in the team. So we talk a lot about, we use the analogy of eagles and ducks. The world's overmanaged and underled. We need more eagles. Eagles, you don't see a lot of eagles. Eagles don't hang in a big group. Eagles don't walk around quacking and squawking and walking around in each other's crap, 40 ducks fighting for one piece of bread. Eagles are different. You can tell the second one walks in a room. When an eagle enters a room, you know, right? Mm-hmm. How they stand, how they walk, 55 to 75% of your message is body language. You can tell the second an eagle walks in a room. It's not the jackwagon, you know, two Freds in a shed mentality of, you know, let's go figure out what we're going to do today at practice. It's a different deal. And so no matter the group, whether it's a paid department, a volunteer department, or, you know, a pharmaceutical company, when we talk about eagles have followers. I know I'm working with ducks when they tell me about their subordinates. They work for me. They're the underlings. There's some subhuman form of life, right? You can just tell how they describe the people. So some departments you walk to, you know, it's like dealing with the trash, you know, and soil a diaper and we'll just replace it. Eagles focus on the people. When they go into that meeting, they go into that officer meeting, topic one, if it's not recruitment, retention, development of the people, you're going to be falling behind, period. You can party plan, you can do all this other stuff, you can worry about speccing out and bidding new equipment, but if the top priority in the organization is not the people, the recruitment, the retention, and the development of the people, you're not going to be there. You're going to be falling behind, right?
Right.
Eagles have personal power. They don't need to pull rank. They don't need to be screaming and yelling at people. They don't need to be showing people stripes on their shirt or handing out business cards with big fancy titles or the color of their helmet. Mm-hmm. You know, ducks, you know, they're pulling rank and screaming and shouting. And eagles use affirmation, encouragement, support. You can tell when you're with an eagle organization, the first thing when they come in, the after action report, man, they're highlighting people. They're celebrating. This was done great. This was done fabulous. The first thing they do is affirm, encourage, and support. The ducks, all they're using is fear, threat, and intimidation, screaming and yelling, a lot of shouting. When I came up through the high school football program, the first thing we did was got rid of all the screaming. All the coaches want to scream at kids, you're out. There's going to be no scream. They changed boot camp. The U.S. Marine Corps changed boot camp. The U.S. military changed boot camp. There's no more screaming and yelling, intimidating, making people look bad. You know, some of the practices you go to where they set up practice to have people fail. Let's send people out. Let's do the practice. You get out there. We'll watch them all fail and ridicule the team. You know, there's no whiteboard in advance prepping people. Here's what we're going to do. Let's learn, you know, the key building block foundations of what we're going to do. Now let's go do it. It's built the other way around. You know, you're with eagles, Brian, whenever they're talking about we and us. You know, you're talking to ducks when it's me and I. What's convenient for me, you know, and so I can keep going down through these things. That you're with eagles when they light fires inside people. You're with ducks when they're trying to light the fire under them.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And when you start lighting fires inside people, how do you create followers? How do you create enthusiasm? How do you create passion? How do you have people that just want to run through fire and broken glass? You know, there's a lot of people in the fire service. People will run through fire and broken glass for them because they've
Sure.
earned the respect. They've been the role model. They're up on their training. They don't skip the practices. They don't bail out and over having a conversation or a smoke someplace in the corner while everybody else is grinding through.
Right.
Those are the department knows. Everybody knows. They've got their own scorecards. Everybody's got, here's
Oh yeah.
the Eagles and here's the Ducks. And
Hmm.
the Ducks, it's all a bunch of quacking. It's all a bunch of problems. The Eagles, it's 1,000 reasons it can't work, but they find the solution.
Right.
So the fire service is going through, any volunteer organization in the country right now is having difficulty recruiting members. All
Right.
volunteer organizations, including the fire service, are having a challenge trying to retain the members.
Hmm.
And so we're no different. Our department, your department, the departments all around us. It's a struggle right now with the time commitment required, the training required. The old school way of, let's get a couple people, let's sign them up, let's drop them in the middle of the North Atlantic, and if they swim to shore, we'll keep them.
Right.
Those days are over. You
Sure.
can't operate that way. There's not enough bodies to go around, and you got fewer and fewer people, and
And
you know the drill.
yeah, no, for sure. And that's why everything that we're talking about here and have talked about on a few other episodes is so important, right? I get questioned all the time because, and I've stated it this way probably a million times on this podcast and on my social media. I know that me and my agency, we are super fortunate for the amount of people that we bring in,
Right.
but we bring in those people because of the culture of the organization. I know people want to be a part of it. And the
Right.
reason they want to be a part of it is because the people that make up the organization make them want to feel like they're a part of something. It's not like you said, you bring somebody in and, well, if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. Everybody knows that every member you take in, regardless of what they're capable of, whether it's scene support, fire police, helping out at a pancake breakfast, doesn't matter what their value is, that they're valuable.
Right. Correct.
And the organization has to do their part in showing that value.
You hit the nail on the head when you use the word culture, Brian. The culture that's created in an organization doesn't just happen magically. The culture
Right.
is something that leadership helps to keep alive, right? You either
Absolutely.
get better. Your organization tomorrow morning is going to be a better organization or a worse organization.
Sure.
You can't stay the same. So when you talk about culture, the leadership's job in an organization is to create an environment where people can succeed and be part of that culture that you're talking about.
Correct.
Many organizations are trying to lower the bar and make it easy for everybody to get over it. And the more you lower the lower the bar has to be. Great culture, high performance organizations, they're raising that bar, and people want to be part of something.
Right.
But it's got to be very well led. We like to talk about the 5 verbs of leadership. We say leadership is a verb. We give all our clients briefcases. It's got Ahern, Murphy and Associates. On the outside, it's emblazoned, leadership is a verb. And my partner Murphy was an adjunct professor at Syracuse University, and an English professor grabbed him in the hallway of one of the academic buildings one time, looked at his briefcase, and it said leadership is a verb on the outside. And she says, leadership isn't a verb, you idiot. So in academia, they don't even know they don't know.
Right.
When we talk about leadership as a verb, the first verb of leadership is model. Model the way. John Wooden was a great basketball coach. He won 10 national championships. He was a great man, great husband, great father, great English teacher, losing basketball coach for 17 seasons. Then he won 10 national championships. He's got a poem in his wallet. It's not the words nor spoken pleas will teach our children how to be, nor all the books on all the shelves, but how the parents are themselves. Talking about leadership. So let's take it. Cazenovia, we've got 60 members. I think you've got 40 or 50 members. It's not the words nor spoken please will teach our department how to be, nor all the books on all the shelves, but how our leaders are themselves. How they park, they watch you park. How you walk across the lot, they watch you walk. How you enter the room, they watch you enter the room. What
Sure.
you do when something horrific just happened, what do you do? All eyes are on you. What do you do when something great just happened? So the first verb of leadership, if you can't model all the things we're talking about on your website, you got a lot of products. It's the passion, integrity, commitment, whatever we decide we're going to model. If it's integrity, if it's not being done by the leaders, it's a joke in the whole organization.
Absolutely.
If passion is important to your organization, if our leaders aren't, passion is contagious. You can feel it in the room, right? You can cut it with a knife when you walk in. Enthusiasm, passion, commitment, integrity. You're talking about words that create a culture of an organization. And if that's not the stuff that's modeled, and when I use the word leadership too, Brian, you don't need a title to be a leader.
Right.
We've got a system in our department where people move their way up and you keep moving through the ranks, and then a guy makes it all the way. It takes 16 years to make it all the way through. Lieutenants, captains, second chief, first chief. Those guys that come back after having run the rank and are still in our body are some of the greatest role model leaders we have. We had a 50-year member, past Chief Shane Emerson. He passed away recently. That guy was showing up at practices. He was there to sell the tickets for the firefighter ball. He would come to every practice or meeting just to encourage the rookies and the young people and talk about the tradition and how proud he was of them that they joined up. Whereas other people, leave the rookies over there. We'll go over here and do our own small talk with our group. So I'm talking definitely about the different colored hats, right? In our case, it's the red hats and the white hats. But it's also, you don't need a title to be a leader. There's people in the department that everybody's, especially when the calls go out, they're looking at that person in that department, right?
For sure.
Where's that leader coming from?
Right.
So first is modeling the way. Second, it's inspiring the shared vision. So what's the vision at Rock Hill? What's the vision at Cazenovia Fire? Where do we see ourselves being? Inspiring people is from the Latin word inspirare. It means to infuse with air and life. And you can't motivate another person. You have to be self-motivated, but you can inspire people, right? You can find out what motivates those people you just brought in. For some people, they want to be trained. They want to do this. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. You got to find that out, but it's your job to inspire the shared vision, right? Talk about a future where we're going. The third verb is challenge, complacency, and status quo. How often have you heard we've always done it that way? We've been doing it that way for 20 years. We tried it before, it doesn't work. I can't think of a great leader in the history of the world that got there by doing what we always did, right? There's not you name the greatest leaders, the greatest people that have impacted your life. It's not by, hugging the trunk and playing it safe and not rocking the boat. Our job is to challenge complacency. It's going to be harder to recruit. It's going to be harder to retain. We got to do some things different. Fourth verb is enabling people. I grew up in an alcoholic household, so enable's a tough word. When I say enabling people, it's the leader's job to help people jump over bars higher than they thought they could. It's a leader's job to see things in people they don't see in themselves. It's a leader's job to believe in people when they don't believe in themselves. Mrs. Carter, my fourth grade teacher, changed my life. Why'd she change my life? She thought things in me and my partner, Bart, that we didn't see in ourselves. She believed in us. We didn't believe in ourselves. We went on, we had a couple coaches that did the same thing. I could ask you the 5 most influential people of your life. Who were they? They're going to be people that follow these verbs. They saw same thing with you, Brian.
Absolutely. Sure.
And then the last verb of leadership, my favorite, is encouraging the heart. So modeling, inspiring, challenging complacency, enabling people, and then encouraging the heart. I'm going to ask you both. Have you ever been discouraged? Have you ever been disillusioned? Have you ever been this close to giving up? I know we've all been there.
Absolutely,
we have our clients draw a life graph, plot the points of your life. Plot the points. Here's the day you were born. Here's today's date. I want to know the points of your life when you were inspired. Tell me where you were and what happened. I want to know the points of your life when you were desperate. Tell me where you were. Tell me what happened. I want to know the points of frustration, and plot that whole graph for me. And we ask people, when you were at that low point in your life, and you were desperate and you were disillusioned, to whom did you turn? to have your heart be encouraged. And you know what's sad, Brian? How often I'm in a room of people and we're asking, write down the names of the people you turn to. They can't think of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll press them. We'll press them. No, seriously, we're not moving on to the next thing until you write down names.
Right.
And then some people will say, well, I've got a 3-year-old daughter that really thinks I'm something special. Some people will say, I've got a golden Labrador retriever that's so happy I found my way home from work today.
Right.
You know, when I walked through the door, we got too many ducks. And because we have too many ducks, we don't have people that understand your job as a leader is to encourage people's hearts. Your job is to catch them doing it right. Your job is to high five them when you see it. Your job is to make a big deal and send out an email blast to the whole membership. Hey, on the fire today, it was so-and-so's first time on the knob, and he put that fire out. So everybody give a big round of applause to new firefighter, whoever the name was, you know. And
Right.
you know, we have all of our clients after a few sessions working with them on their leadership development journey. They leave, and your job today, when you leave, I'm making you all CEOs, Chief Encouragement Officer.
Mhm.
Your job is to be the chief encouragement officer at your home, at your kitchen table, with your kids, with your colleagues, with your coworkers, with your fellow officers, you know, and you know, if we had more of that, if we had more eagles, we'd have less problems, but it's everywhere, Brian. And the fire service isn't singled out alone. We live on a world right now that's gone kind of crazy.
Oh, for
and
sure. Yeah.
You're hard to escape it when you're on it.
Mhm.
But this stuff I'm talking about, you know, we've got a 10,000 person hospital we work at. There's certain people in that hospital, if they asked for help, the building would empty out. Kara works at that hospital. Am I right, Kara? There's certain people at that hospital. If they ask for help, and they're somewhere buried down in the org chart somewhere, they don't have all the fancy initials after their name, but there's certain people in that 10,000 person hospital that if they ask for help, that building would empty out for them.
Right.
There's other people in the hospital. They're very high up on the chart. They're way at the top. They got all kinds of initials after their name. If you saw them being mugged in the parking lot, you'd go to lunch first before you call 911. True or false? True or false?
Right. Well, it's not untrue.
One is an eagle,
Mhm.
and the other's a duck, right? And you know, so we've dedicated our careers. You know, we gave up great jobs to doing this and going out there and trying to light the fire back in somebody. But you know, the myths we always hear is this: well, Tim, I'm just not a natural born leader. You know, well, Malala, at age 11, when she decided to start a blog because it was unfair that girls couldn't be educated, she
Mhm.
wasn't any kind of natural born leader. Terry Fox, who ran the Marathon of Hope and ran 26 miles for 143 state days until the cancer spread to his body and died, he was no natural born leader. A lot of the people you have coming up through the ranks, so there are no natural born leaders.
Sure.
The babies at the maternity ward, they all have the potential to have passion, enthusiasm, integrity, but we've got to develop that stuff, and that's the good news.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we hear, well, I don't have the title. Tim, you want me to be a leader? Well, I'm not a mucky muck. I don't have a white hat. I don't have I don't care what color your goddamn hat is. Okay.
Right.
You don't need a title to be a leader. Be a role model right now. You're the last one in the room. The whole room wants to start gossiping about someone that's not here and talking about their back. You change the subject. You stand up and say, I don't think it's right to talk about people that aren't here, right?
Right.
We're on the same team. We're wearing the same uniform. They all have American flags on the damn.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
One thing that you touched on, Tim, that I think is so important, and I think that is something that is hard for people to wrap their heads around sometimes, is the leadership is not necessarily what your rank is, but the way that you are behaving, right? So I have seen a lot of excellent leadership examples in my time in the fire service from people simply for the way that they do patient care for an EMS patient.
Right.
I mean, something as what seems like a small, isolated amount of time where they treated the patient with respect, did the medical care correctly and justly, and the patient felt that they were being taken care of, and when they called for help, help came. Right. Something as seemingly small as that act is leadership. and is
Yeah.
an example of true leadership. And I think that as a department and as an organization, if you are recognizing that person for the leadership moment, and I think there's a lot of leadership moments, right, that
Yeah.
just kind of go by us every day that we don't really acknowledge or pay attention to. And it's not to say that everybody needs a pat on the back for doing what their job is for every call. That's not the same thing. But if you see an example of good leadership in your crew, it's great to point that out, like to say to them, I really appreciate the way you provided patient care for this case.
Right.
Something that's small like that, like you say, can spark that fire within them to want to do better. If you hear about only the things that you do wrong, the message is whatever you do is going to be wrong.
Right.
And if you start to hear about the things that you're doing right, then you're going to want to do more of those things. And you want to continue on that path and demonstrate to others those leadership qualities. And I think that's such an important thing.
You're absolutely on the mark, Kara. Absolutely 100% on the mark. We got a new puppy coming Tuesday. Our dog died a couple months ago.
Oh, that was very tragic.
We got 2 dogs. Okay. So we got the new puppy coming. And Carolyn's reading her Cesar Chavez book to get ready to train this puppy.
Cesar Millan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's
Cesar Millan.
So,
yeah.
I think Chavez was a boxer, wasn't he?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Also a good leadership.
So, but anyway, so she's telling me she's reading this book, she's watching this thing. So the new puppy comes Tuesday. Training a puppy. The puppies go towards pleasure and away from pain.
Right.
Training an employee, I don't care where you work, they go towards pleasure away from pain.
Yep.
Dealing with generations at work, talk about millennials at work, they're going to go towards pleasure. They're going to go away from pain. So if we have a retention problem in the fire service, if we have a retention problem at Upstate Medical Center, if we have a retention problem, pick any company, anywhere, there's, retaining people is one of the number one challenges. Number one reason people leave is I work for a jerk. They'll make up in the exit interview, they'll make up all these reasons why they left. No, life is too short now. And people, in the old days, you could kick people in the head. You could grab them by the face mask. You could whip them with a lanyard. You could do whatever you wanted to do. And people dealt with it. They changed Marine Corps boot camp. The screaming and the yelling and the whipping and the catching people doing things wrong is falling by the wayside. Just exactly what you talked about, Kara. Napoleon said the greatest discovery that he made is that men will die for ribbons. Now, Napoleon, he did a lot of great things. He accomplished a lot of great things. He had a lot of have-nots in his military. First thing he did is he made sure they had great uniforms, so they looked the part.
Right.
Have people look the part. Next thing he made sure is they were well fed. Next thing he made sure is he knew what was going on with all his junior officers. Were they married? What was the wife name? Did they have kids? What was going on? So he did a lot of things, and this whole business about catching people doing things right. My partner Murphy had a chest full of medals. He won the Distinguished Flying Cross. He had fruit salad, and I would read what, he did to get these things. He grew up without a father. His father abandoned him. So when he was called forward by a man who said, "Son, I'm proud of you," and pinned a 69-cent piece of ribbon on his uniform, you know what was happening there with that kid? I was a high school football coach. You know what we could get kids to do for sticker? We had a sticker, a football sticker or a skull and crossbones sticker. You know what a kid will do to get a sticker on their helmet?
Right.
We also gave out boxes of animal crackers for certain things, and we gave out we had crunch bars for certain things. You know what a kid will do for a crunch bar? You know what they will do for a box of animal crackers? It doesn't cost anything. We're doing a lot of healthcare. We've got a lot of healthcare clients. For some reason, when they train healthcare workers, that whole training teaches them to find what's wrong with the patient, find what's wrong with the patient, find what's wrong, find what's wrong, find what's wrong. Well, Susie, the super nurse, now becomes Susie, the supervisor. She's been trained her whole life to find what's wrong. So there's a lot of catching people doing things wrong. There's a lot of writing people up. There's a lot of coming around with the bamboo stick and whacking them about the head because they did things wrong. We've had great success changing retention rates and changing culture and changing morale just by I want you to spend 80% of your time catch people doing it right.
Right.
Sure.
And I want you to spend 20% of your time correcting the people doing it wrong. And when they can make that change, Kara, where they're doing exactly what you said, you don't make up stuff. We're not making up so we
No.
can give everybody a trophy. But I know you had Joe McLaughlin on this as a mentee.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, you had Joe McLaughlin, who's outstanding young man.
Yeah.
I mean, when that kid, he's a high school kid. He's running across the street to come to the fire call at 3:00 in the morning to go, and he's going on every single medical call. If you're not complimenting that kid for the great thing he did, and you know what it's like on these rescue calls with a woman stuck between the tub and the toilet and there's crap all over everything. The kid's 18 years old in high school in the middle of, to miss the opportunity to compliment him. And I see Kara do it all the time, and to pull him aside and tell him what an outstanding job he did. Most people couldn't handle something like that. And made the woman not feel self-conscious, and you covered her up with that towel, and you did this and you did that. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our job as a leader in the organization.
Well,
period. End of story.
And to that point, Kara, that inspires others as well. When they overhear you saying to that person, "Hey, good job, way to take the extra step. You did a really good job on that call," whatever it is that you're complimenting them on, people overhear that. That's why I always talk about just simple things like saying thank you to people.
Yes.
It
Right.
doesn't cost you a dime. It costs you less than the sticker Tim was just talking about.
Sure.
Just say, "Hey, thanks for coming out at 3
Yeah.
in the morning for the activated alarm for the third time of the night."
Right.
But people hear you having that conversation, or they read that email, like you mentioned, Tim. They read that email where you give somebody an attaboy for something that they did, and it inspires them to want to be better and to better themselves,
Right.
and to
Right.
potentially see the same thing happen for them. And it's so important.
Brian, you hit a great point just there. You said it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to recognize someone.
No.
It doesn't cost anything to appreciate someone. It doesn't cost anything to thank someone. It doesn't cost anything to affirm someone. It doesn't cost anything.
Right.
So why would we? They say the greatest tool in a leader's toolbox is the tool of affirmation, encouragement, and support. But most people, when they take that tool out, the tool of affirmation, encouragement, support, it's the greatest tool in a leader's toolbox. They usually bring it out at someone's wake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm tired, as we age, I'm old now. As we age, the first thing is you start getting asked to stand up in everybody's wedding. And then you get to an age where you're asked to give eulogies at funerals. I vowed I am never again going to go to a funeral and say things about someone that I have not told them to their face. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And men are defective products. Men are raised from the time they're little boys. Don't talk, don't share, don't feel, don't cry.
Right.
So men suck at this. Everything we're talking about, men suck at. We're terrible at it. You don't tell people this stuff. You just suck it up, buckle your chin strap, and get back in there. When you hurt, you tape an aspirin to your head and go back out. Right. I mean, it's
for sure.
Right.
So we're terrible at this thing, but you know what? We can learn it.
Sure.
We can get better at it.
One example that I have taught, and Tim's heard me teach this too, is when we are, for example, taking care of patients who we know are at the end of life. And that's a difficult thing. In the fire service, we're going to see some really terrible things. We're going to see people on their absolute worst days, whether it is a fire or whether it is an EMS call. And when we talk about seeing people at end of life and what's going to happen to them and what is going on in the room at that time, when we take EMT classes and when we take CFR classes or whatever, it doesn't necessarily talk about what that's going to look like as a responder when you're in that room, and how they're never going to forget you or what you did that day, right? So when I talk to our members about something like that, I let them know, address the family and use the deceased person's name if you know it,
Right.
Or if you know
Right.
what the relationship was, say, I'm very, it's okay to be human and say, I'm very sorry that your mom passed away.
Right.
And I'm sorry that there wasn't more that we could do to help you today.
Mhm.
And, if you're comfortable in pre-COVID, offer a hug or a pat on the shoulder or a simple human touch, something like that shows our community that we are leaders and we are here for them and we are there to support them. But I think to Tim's point, it's not something that's inherent. It's something that must be taught.
Right.
And it's forgotten about very frequently. These types of skills are assumed that people either have them or they don't, and they can't learn them. And that's really not the case. You can learn how to have these skills.
So Kara's touching on a great point, and I always like to talk about comfort zone and courage zone. So it's uncomfortable for men, if you're raised, don't talk, don't share, don't feel, don't cry,
Mhm.
to share emotion, be vulnerable, to weep. I think I'm not, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a great leader, I don't care what's easy. I don't care what's convenient. I don't care what's popular. I don't care what's comfortable. You want to be a leader. Part of being a leader is being comfortable when you're made to feel uncomfortable and stepping out of your comfort zone. It's not comfortable to be in those situations. It's not comfortable to share you were discouraged or disillusioned. It's not comfortable to be in that place. And people, we got this macho thing. There's a lot of macho stuff going on in the fire service. It's a bunch of BS.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's actually just the opposite. So if I'm Joe Macho and nothing bothers me and I can just go run through fire and broken glass and nothing phases me, nothing bothers me, I'm motionless. You actually have less respect than the one that shares their humanity with the members. Especially, we've had some calls where it rocks the house, and especially if it's someone young. And
Sure.
if you don't have the courage to step out of your comfort zone into a courage zone to share your humanity, and then it ends up people think more of you. General Schwarzkopf,
Yeah.
Norman Schwarzkopf, when he was told to start the Gulf War, they asked him, well, what happened? He knew Saddam Hussein would back off. They would not start the war. In the meantime, he had ordered 100,000 body bags. When the war was going to start and he was told to send the troops in, they asked him, well, what did you do next? He says, I went into my tent, I wrote a love letter to my wife, and I wept. Because I knew I was going to be sending kids back in those bags,
Mhm.
Right.
Our leaders are going to have to, I don't care what's comfortable and easy and convenient. It's courage zone, right? And all this catching people doing things right. We teach praising in public. Having that conversation with Joe in front of some other people, or saying it at the next meeting. Every meeting we're at, okay, let's talk about calls last month. Does anybody have anything to say? No, nobody's got crickets. There's nothing to say.
Oh, that happens.
That's what we're about. All of
Not
this
unique
is
to Rock
for these
Hill.
calls.
Oh,
Not
that
unique.
happens by you guys too. Really?
Nobody's
Wow.
got anything to say, so that is an opportunity to say, hey, we had, and I'm not saying make stuff up. It's like we almost have to take a mental note that says, hey, on this call, someone was really outside of their comfort zone and they were doing something they've never done before. And they rolled down the back of the ambulance all the way to the hospital with that heart attack pumping on someone's chest. We're missing opportunities as leaders when we miss that stuff. Now, you're going to have some difficult conversations that come up, because we're going to start praising people a lot, catching people doing things right. And Joe the jackwagon's going to come up to you, Brian, and say, well, Brian, how come you never single me out in meetings? How come you never compliment me?
Yeah.
Now we're going to have the critical conversation, Brian, because, and Joe the jackwagon, because you're a jackwagon.
Right.
And here's what you do. And you're ridiculing people and you're always late and you bag out on practices and you're trying to race through the call and just get the report out and get the hell out rather than take care of things, and you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
But even that we can do as a teaching moment. We're going to correct in private. We're going to praise in public. And then teaching moment, even the U.S. Marine Corps, they use the Oreo cookie thing. Hey, you're a great young man. You're a terrific member of this department. But when you do these things and you gossip behind people's back and you're trashing stuff and you steal the meat slicer out of the kitchen, we can't have, you're not living up to our integrity standard. And remember, you're valuable at all these other things. We're going to have critical conversations that need to be had
Right.
with some of our members.
There's one thing I want to say about your crickets comment, because I know some leaders that, and this has happened to myself. I always try to say at our monthly, positive things when I give my report. Hey, we had great turnouts all month. We had a great response on that call. Whatever it may be, just something. And I know I've had this conversation with others outside of my department that are like, I've tried to do that same thing, and it's like I'm talking to crickets. Like nobody, like I'll say something, and it's like they don't even, like, they're not even acknowledging what I'm saying.
Right.
Don't stop because of that.
No.
People are still listening, even though you think you're talking to a room of crickets, because, you're acknowledging what they're doing and how they're doing it, and their enthusiasm and their dedication. Don't think just because they're not all, like staring at you like you're the last person to speak the word, that they're not listening to what you're saying. They're not paying attention, because they are, and I know I've had conversations with people where they're like, I don't think nobody's listening to me when I talk like that. No, they're listening. They're just,
That's universal, Brian, what you just brought up. Everyone, a high performance championship team. So we do a lot of leadership development. We do a lot of high performance championship team development. You got to have the leaders first. Okay. We got to get some leadership going. Now we can talk about a high performance team. High performance championship teams, when they gather, the first thing they do is celebrate success.
Yep.
That's after action reports. F-16s came back from a combat mission. They come back in that room. They're going to celebrate. First thing, we celebrate success. Game balls, stickers, celebrate success, after action report.
Sure.
Now, all of our clients, when we try, they start going through a process with us, we're doing these weekly success stories. In the beginning, no one has any. I don't have anything. There's no success, personal. There's no professional success, and there's no organizational success. Zero. Crickets. Okay. Next week, we're going to do the same thing. And when we get inside companies, we have to do a little pre-planning for the meeting. Okay. Joe the jackwagon, I need to talk to him. Listen, we're going to have a meeting. You're not going to bring up any of your typical BS. I don't want to hear it. We're going to stick to our agenda. So, I know you like to play the student teacher game and hijack the whole agenda for the meeting. You're not talking at the meeting, right? Are we clear?
Sure.
We're clear. Then we're going to go, hey, Sam, I want you to talk about the call that happened the other day, especially these new rookie firefighters had their first chance inside. Kara, I want you to talk about that accident where we had extrication and we had the non-medical people working closely with the medical people, and this all happened and the guy was airlift. I want you to kind of bring up that call and highlight some people. And then Kara can go talk to two people. Hey, I'm going to bring that call up and you're going to talk about this and you're going to talk about that. Part of our courage zone is we got to get people comfortable standing up and, talking about the right things in those meetings. Okay.
Right.
And don't give up on it just because no one does it. If one person with courage is the majority. One person with courage is a majority. Let me say that one more time. One person with courage is a majority. So you got to take a bell-shaped curve and put your 50-person department on the bell-shaped curve. On that bell-shaped curve in a 50-person department, there's 5 get it done and then some heart and soul people. The company would not function without those 5 people. At the other end of the bell-shaped curve are 5 energy-draining, parasitic, blood-sucking, card-carrying members of the bitch, moan, and complain club that where nothing is ever good enough, whining, moaning, pissing, crying. Okay?
Right.
Those 5. Now, the 5 that make the place happen, we need to be engaged with them. We need to be talking to them, no matter what color hat they wear. Right? What ideas do they have? What suggestions do they have?
Sure.
The whiners, moaners, and complainers, they're just trying to hijack the agenda. We got to stop calling on them. In the middle now are 40 people. We call it the frozen middle. Most of them are dominated by fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of change. They're really, really good people. They're dynamic people. If we have great leadership, that bell-shaped curve does a student body right, and we have the whole unit start moving towards our lead sled dogs. If we're doing it wrong, the toxic group, the gossip group, the talk behind the blasting people behind their back group, they're trying to hijack that frozen middle group. And we can tell, we put that bell-shaped curve up. I asked my chiefs, my officers, put names down. Who are the get it done and then some people? Write the names. 20% of the members do 80% of the calls, true or false?
True.
20% of the members come in on 80% of the work details.
Yep.
20% of the members are doing all the, fundraising. 20% of the members, right? It's the same. So it's, we want to create that high performance culture. We're going to start with that small 20% of the population. And who are they? Let's get them. What's my plan for them? Let's really engage that group. Let's get moving. You can't wait for everybody to buy in and get on board, because you'll never get everybody happy to buy in. You get the guiding coalition to buy in, and you go. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's start it.
Yep.
Right.
And lots of times what happens once you start moving ahead with that initial group, some of those people in the middle, like you said, will start to shift over. Maybe
Yes.
not in large numbers, but one
Right.
at a time. They'll slowly start to move over. And if you're really successful, you might even start to move some of that naysayer group over.
The naysayer, the toxic people, if you can succeed at getting them to clam up and stop hijacking meetings, and stop saying dumb, stupid stuff, stop with the gossip stuff that right? If you can just stop being a jerk, that's improvement, right?
Yep.
Stop being and leadership. Kara, on one of your podcasts I listened to, said something to the effect, the worst thing a leader can do is tolerate, bad performers, right? And not do anything about them.
Right.
So when we got those toxic people that are pulling their crap and hijacking meetings and hijacking practices and doing stuff that embarrasses the culture that you're talking about in your department out in the public space, if we're not addressing that stuff, it's like your kids. I mean, if you don't address that behavior, you're in for a long world of hurt. So
Sure.
Part of our job is to deal with them.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't hurt to look at, why it's crickets when you're asking questions of your employees or staff member or your crew. Why is it happening? What happened that made them feel that they should not speak up or can't speak up during the meeting? Right. Is it that some people just want to get out of there and the attitude is don't talk because it'll make the meeting go longer and we don't want to be here? Those people certainly have the choice of not being there. It's volunteer for a reason.
I'm sure you guys have heard this said before, right? You change the name on the front of the building, but everything inside the building kind of remains the same, right?
Right.
You're right. I mean, that is what either it's they want to just get out of there, or they don't want to stir the pot with more conversation, or it's just easier to let it go through and we'll talk about it afterwards in small groups. Right.
And complain about it and be
complain,
miserable.
Right.
And then
be
not
miserable.
show up because you're angry about how it went down.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. For sure.
And again, maybe, Kara's dead on. Brian, you're right on. I'm going back to that room is full of people. 20% of the people go on calls. 80% don't. So talking about calls, you got a bunch of people that, some are knife and forkers. They're there to go to the picnics and the banquets and the clam bakes. 20% are
knife and forkers.
On, so maybe the time to talk about the calls is on practice night. Maybe it's on rescue night. Maybe it's a shorter thing during the meeting. It's just on something major that happens. But I think we have to cater. The Guiding Coalition, I'm going to go back to. Cotter wrote a book, youngest full tenured professor at the Harvard Business School. The book is called Leading Change. And in there, he talks about identify your guiding coalition and really work with them on the vision and where you're going and engage them and ask them, seek their input, right? And keep that group alive, because that guiding coalition, that 20% can affect the next 20% and we can get this thing moving. So it's finding the right time and the right balance. No one wants to go to a 2.5-hour department meeting.
Right.
But they can be more than 2 minutes, right? It can be more than a 2-minute meeting.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Right. You can, there's a blend and a balance.
Medium.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with also putting an end to a conversation that's like just beating a dead horse and it's been going on way too long. If everybody has had, an opportunity to speak and talk about it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, okay, let's, put a pin in this for tonight. We have other things we need to get to. We, if anybody else has more that they want to talk about, and has more issues or concerns, please see a chief or officer, or however else you handle it. But there's nothing wrong with, running your meeting like a meeting, and not just letting it just be, verbal diarrhea if it gets to that point. If nothing new and valid and important is being said anymore and we're just all arguing, then that's not productive. And that's not helping anybody. It's not helping our community. It's not helping us feel good about being firefighters. It's not helping the organization. So there's nothing wrong with calling that and saying, we've gone as far as we're going to go with it tonight. Here's an opportunity for you to talk about it in the future with XYZ people.
Right.
Or see me afterwards, and we'll set up another meeting. Yep. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
So, Tim, one thing I'd like to ask you, because we got to start wrapping things up. We could probably talk for hours on this.
Oh, it's went gone quick. You guys are easy to talk with.
And we're definitely going to have to do this again, because I'm sure we're going to get some questions and feedback, and we'll set up a part 2 for sure.
Yes.
But one thing I'd like to ask you is, I tell people at times when they're, firefighters tend to, when they want to learn how to be a better leader, they only look to the fire service.
Right.
They look at famous chiefs, or they look at popular chiefs of the time in the career or the volunteer service. But I always say, look outside the fire service. Don't just look at the fire service.
Absolutely.
And I recently found a series on Netflix. I've been watching The Playbook. Have you seen that yet?
I have not. Yeah.
So it's focuses on different sports leaders. First episode was Doc Rivers, and it's some good stuff. So what are some resources that you would recommend to people that are looking for, places to go, things to read outside of the normal fire service channels that they might?
Sure. Outside of the normal fire service channels, John Maxwell, he's a prolific writer. He's ordained minister, 2 PhDs. In religious organizations are like fire service organizations, because it doesn't work without volunteers. Okay. So he's a prolific writer. You can read anything on him. Developing the Leader Within You is a text we use with a lot of our 9-week leadership development program. But he's got books on attitude, teamwork. He's got a great one, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. Mm-hmm. Just because you know how to send an email blast to 50 members, just because you can send a text to all of them, doesn't mean you're making connections with people.
Sure.
Cotter, I talked about, John Cotter, Leading Change. We use a lot of Collins books, Good to Great. Collins is the author. Kouzes and Posner wrote the book, The Leadership Challenge, which is where we pull our 5 verbs of leadership from. But I'll send you a list, Brian. I'll tabulate a couple things.
That would be great.
Here's 10 books outside of pure fire service. And then with all of our clients, we ask them to think of their life. Who are the influencers of your life? And it could have been an immigrant grandparent that didn't speak English, who had a 4th grade education.
Sure.
What lesson did they teach you, right? Which teacher was it? You had all these teachers, but there's like 2 teacher names that come out, right? And what was it about that teacher? What was it about that coach? What was it about that first boss when you were a lifeguard? That boss that I used to dig ditches. I was a construction worker. I got off the farm. That boss, we knew what his truck sounded like. We knew what the truck door was like when it closed, and we knew what his boots looked like, because we were always in the ditch, right?
Sure.
But here's what you learned from that boss. So I really want you to use your own life experiences of who were the people that changed my life. What was it about those people? Write down the traits and characteristics. You're going to find a lot of common traits that tie back to what we talked about today. The last thing we do with all of our fire departments, paid or volunteer, is we give them the 5 levels, and we say, I want you to put all your officers on where are they on the levels. So the first level of leadership is position. They have an announcement at the meeting. Everybody votes. We stand up and we hand out different colored hats. You're now the new lieutenant. You're the new cap. So the day you get your new hat, you're the lowest level leader in the organization, level 1
Sure.
position. It says so on my business card. I've got the colored hat. I've got a different buttons on my uniform. You grow to level 2 leader by permission. What does that mean? The people you are leading have just given you permission to lead them. How does that happen? Respect. You've built the relationships with them. They trust you. You're a person of integrity. They know you're up on all the stuff. You're not asking them to do anything you're not doing. All the verbs you're already doing. So now you give people, they've given you permission to lead them. So how many level 1 leaders do I have in my department? What's my plan to get them to level 2? It takes time. It doesn't happen automatically.
Right,
it's not a mandate that you must respect this person. So who are my level 1 leaders? Who are my level 2 leaders? Level 3 leaders, it's production. I've got the position. I've earned the permission. And now we're cranking out results. Look at our numbers. Look at our metrics. Here's what's happening. Stuff on calls, right? The things we're tracking and measuring are all getting done. The team can sense the progress we're making. You can feel it. And who are my level 3 leaders, right? They're making it happen. Now, most people get burned out at level 3 because we don't realize level 4 is people development. Level 3 leaders, they have to be the first ones there. They got to be the last ones to leave. They can't take a vacation because that place doesn't run without them. I go from a level 3 leader, a production leader, to a level 4 leader, people development. And here I'm going to throw a compliment at Kara. There is no one in our entire department that works harder and is more dedicated to building the bench within our department than Kara. She's going out of her way beyond just being the officer that she is to reach out to the people coming up along the ranks, helping guide them to get to the next level where everybody's busy. Everybody's got a full-time job. Everybody's got taking care of kids, raising this, doing this. And we've all got it, but you become a level 4 leader when we realize it's our job to build the bench, see the future, groom the people. You don't need a title to be a leader, but I want you to be the team lead at this practice doing this exercise. And then level 5, it's for guys like you, Brian. I mean, in the service for 30 years, bigger than life. You've rose up through all the levels. You built the bench. You've gone, done the things you're doing to help build the fire service for future generations. 50 years from now, somebody will be patching up in archives, listening to your podcast saying, this stuff was great, man. Back in 2020, this guy was
the only good thing about 2020 was the Professional Brotherhood podcast.
I wonder how they're going to be listening to this a little bit in 30 years, but you're right. You're right.
Right.
And, you guys are both leaders. I'm proud of you both. You're dedicated to make the service better. And leaders, Eagles don't ever take anything and give it back in worse condition than they found it. Eagles take whatever they were handed and they give it to the next person in better shape than they found it, right?
Yeah,
they make their mark on what it is they're doing. And, you certainly, Brian, are doing that with what you're. I know there's a lot of things you could be spending your free time on rather than on a Sunday talking to Tim and his office in Cazenovia, but I'm proud of you for doing it. And it's an Eagle trait, so keep doing it.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. And this was a great conversation. We're definitely going to have to hook up for I think another at least another hour somewhere.
Sure. It might be nice to do a live if you're open to it, so that people can ask you questions.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people that would love to hear your feedback to their.
Any way I can help, I'm happy to help. You guys are great. You're terrific. And what I like too is the people that are talking about it are actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
The problem with academia, you got people that read about going through the jungle in a book. I want to learn about going through the jungle from people that have been in the jungle, who've scratched and clawed and fought their way through the jungle, felt lost, felt burned, felt the heat, and then made it out. That's who I want to have be, the leaders that we're working with, not
sure.
Right.
All right. Well, Tim, thank you very much for joining us today. Really, really, really appreciate it. We're definitely, I think people are going to get a tremendous amount out of this episode. We will definitely set something up for the future, either a live YouTube, or maybe we'll eventually get out of this whole COVID madness. Sure. And our goal is eventually to do this with like real people and, where you can actually sit down next to one another. So Right,
So
right.
Brian, let's dedicate this to the 1.1 million firefighters.
Absolutely.
370,000 are career, 745,000 are volunteer. It's a third of 1% of the population. We talked about a lot of things, but if we didn't have that 1 million people, where would we be? And
For sure.
Absolutely.
let's give them the leadership that they deserve. So thank you
Absolutely.
for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.